With that, it's time for our speaker. Logan has been with us since January, and seems like he's been here a long time because he's accomplished a great deal. He's the curator of football heritage. He earned a BA from Ohio University in 2021 and an MA in museum studies from the University of Oklahoma in 24. As an intern in the collections department at the Pro Football Hall of Fame during the summer of 24, his interest in the history of football blossomed. So now, as in his curator's job, he researches and develops exhibitions for the Paul Brown Museum Gallery, and he maintains the Paul Brown Research Library in memory of Paul Shiring. And I hope you will enjoy Logan's program, and I hope you will go up and see the most recent exhibition that he curated after the program. Logan, here you go.
Cool, very good. Thank you very much, Margie, for introducing me, and thank you all for coming out. This is a very exciting opportunity for me. Margie kind of gave you background on all about me, so I kind of skip all of that. Today we're going to be talking about Titles and Claims, which is the exhibition currently on display in the Paul Brown Gallery. One thing Margie didn't mention, because it didn't happen, is I am not from Massillon. I am new to the whole experience of the Tigers and all of the community in that regard. So it has been a very fun time this season, getting to know everyone and participating in all the different activities. So when I first came in, it was kind of a challenge of, okay, I've read the biographies about Paul Brown and all of this stuff, but I need to learn more about what makes Massillon Massillon and why this community is so proud to be this community. And I came up with the idea of focusing on the 12 men who brought home 25 state championships to Massillon. You call it the City of Champions for a reason, and it is because of these 12 men. So we'll just hop into it then. All right, so just to give you a brief timeline on what we're looking at here. 12 coaches, 25 state championships. 24 of those championships came from 1909 to 1970. So that's a 61-year span of the Tigers winning, being declared state champions. I think it came out to about every 2.5 years we were winning a state championship, which is pretty impressive. So for 1891, WHS first formed their first football team, and then it took a couple years to kind of get things going. But once Ralph Hap Fugate came in 1909, it just kind of exploded. And then obviously a lot of these names are very familiar to you guys, I'm sure. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one of them. But before we do that, we kind of have to talk about how state champions were declared. So over the years, it's changed 3 times. So to put a little bit of perspective, in 2012, OHSAA historian Timothy Hudek compiled pre-poll era state champions, leading to the OHSAA recognizing state champions all the way back to 1895. So this is where we really get. So in my research, I've noticed there's a lot of discrepancy about looking back at the history of the Tigers. When was that first state champion? It was when this 2012 historian put together this information that we officially got our 1909 state championship recognized. So prior to the poll era, that you kind of have an idea about, champions were declared via popular acclaim, meaning that a team that went undefeated and had the backing of local sports writers were given the title. These teams would usually host challengers to their titles at the end of the season to determine a state champion. This continued until 1947 when the AP polls were introduced, much like how very similar do we know them as today. Following the lead of those covering the NCAA, Ohio sports writers began including a voting poll in their publications. Once the sports writers voted, the AP would compile the results and release a list of the top 10 programs to the media. The results of these polls were updated and circulated weekly throughout the season. Typically by the 3rd or 4th week, they kind of have a rhythm going. And then by instituting a voting system, this meant that teams could no longer expect a championship title for simply going undefeated. A team was now judged against a myriad of factors like strength of schedule, head-to-head competition, and historical reputation. And this continued until 1972, which began the playoff era as we know it today. So initially, schools were divided into 3 divisions. We're currently now up to like 5 or 6 with a myriad of regions from the initial 4 that began. And over the years, that number has increased. Teams were and still are ranked and selected to compete in the end-of-season playoff tournament by a point system, which mathematically determines a team's strength and that of their opponents. The introduction of divisions and the point system provided smaller, historically underrated teams a chance to bring recognition to their district. So that's kind of a bit of background. So now let's hop into the men that brought these titles to us. So Ralph Fugate, in 1909, came to coach the Tigers. Prior to his arrival in Massillon, Fugate represented the Salem High School on the gridiron before joining up with the city's professional team. By 1908, he was working with the semi-pro Dover Giants, coached by Sherburne Whiteman, who had played for the 1907 professional Tigers. So 1909 was a big year for the Tigers. It was their first winning season in the team's 18-year history to that point. Sullied only by a 0-0 tie with Akron, so they finished 9-0-1. The team outscored their opponents 153-13. Massillon also beat arch rival Canton Central, now McKinley, twice in one season, the last time that 2 games were played between the teams prior to the game becoming a season finale tradition. Those 2 wins brought the Tigers' record against the Bulldogs to 3-13-1. Not only was Fugate's 1909 team the first in Massillon's history to claim the state championship title, but they were also the first winning season, but the first didn't stop there. It was also the first season in which the team turned a profit, $200 about, or just over $6,900 in today's dollars, by selling admission to the games. In 1909, also saw the introduction of varsity letters that were passed out at a end-of-season banquet, a tradition that is still carried on to this day. Ralph would finish his 3 seasons with the Tigers with a record of 19-8-3. I would also like to say, if you'd like to see any artifacts or team photos to help flesh out your ideas here, I'd recommend checking out the gallery upstairs. There are team photos for every one of the state championship winning teams and many other interesting pieces up there. So Fugate's in Massillon from 1909 to 1911, and then we kind of enter a period of quietness until John Snavely comes along. So John Snavely was the first Massillon native to begin his coaching career with the Tigers. He graduated from Washington High School as part of the class of 1909 and attended Otterbein University, where he served as captain of the football team during the 1912 season, his senior year. The Tigers finished their first season under Snavely with a 6-2 record, but from there, the winning percentage only seemed to increase, culminating in 1916 when the Tigers posted their first 10-0 record. The 1916 squad surpassed all expectations and scored 318 points while holding their opponents to 35. The following 3 seasons under John Snavely saw moderate success, with nothing quite close reaching the 1916 season's success. And this is due to a myriad of factors, such as the U.S.'s entrance into World War I and the influenza pandemic of 1918. Several games were canceled due to that pandemic, including the annual McKinley game. This is the last time that game would be canceled, up until, I believe, the mid-'60s. So while the next 3 years were pretty quiet under Snavely, there was one bright spot that did appear in the 1917 season in the form of Harry Stuhldreher, the future quarterback of Notre Dame's infamous Four Horsemen. Stuhldreher started for both the Tigers in both the 1918 and 1919 seasons. Snavely would finish his 6-year career with the Tigers with a 41-8-2 record. And now to continue on about Harry Stuhldreher and how he has played a very influential part here in Massillon, after he finished his career at Massillon, he went on to Kitski Prep in Pennsylvania, which is a prep school, in order to prepare him for entering Notre Dame the following year. And it was here that Stuhldreher became acquainted with Dave Stewart, a first-year assistant coach. During their short time together, Stuhldreher regaled his coach with stories of Massillon and the Tigers, which led Stewart to pursue the open coaching position in Massillon. In Stewart's first season, the Tigers suffered a major defeat on their way to a 5-4 record at the hands of Dayton Steel. This was a 68-0 loss, one of the steepest that the Massillon has faced. However, this rough patch wouldn't last. In 1922, the team led by captain and quarterback Arvine Tink Ulrich, future first president of the Massillon Tigers Booster Club, managed to get the second undefeated record in Massillon's history. This season, the Tigers shut out 6 different teams, with the most impressive being a 94-0 walloping of Akron North. In this game, Edwin Dutch Hill recorded 8 rushing touchdowns, a record that still stands today, 103 years later. In 1924, Stewart began focusing his attention and energy on cultivating a 120-pound quarterback whose determination to play almost outweighed him. Later, when writing about his time under Dave Stewart in his autobiography, Paul Brown attributed his passion and drive for coaching to Stewart, who taught Brown and the rest of the Massillon boys that football was a game that should be fun, and this can only be done by surrounding yourself with good people. Coach Stewart finished his 5-season stint with the Tigers with a record of 38-9-0. And now for the one you all know. So, Paul Brown was the second Massillon native to take the reins of the Tigers. While he wasn't born in Massillon, Massillon became his home. He's buried here to this day. So, Paul Brown helped shape Massillon football into the machine it is today. He moved to the area with his family from Norwalk in 1920, and 5 years later found himself the starting quarterback of Dave Stewart's team in his junior year at Massillon. Stewart was not only a great friend and mentor to Paul, but he was also a strong believer in his potential. Stewart would eventually recommend Paul for the Massillon coaching position. Despite his small size, Paul was a genuine field commander. Stewart had enough faith in him to let Paul decide the lineups for the second half of games. So we can start to see his coaching already taking into effect when he's still 16 years old. After graduating from Massillon, he went down to Ohio State University with the hopes of playing. However, due to his small stature, he was prevented from getting that opportunity. So he transferred out to Miami University, where he did earn the quarterback position and led his teams to an 18-4 record over his 2 seasons as their starting quarterback. Following his graduation in 1930, Brown took a position as a backfield coach at Severn Prep Naval Academy in Maryland and earned the role of head coach the following season. For the first 3 seasons under Paul Brown's tutelage, the Tigers posted winning records but fell to McKinley in the season finale every time. It took until the 1935 season for Brown's system to fall into place, now that his team was composed of boys who came up through the middle school ranks and had learned his expectations for the varsity team. From 1935 to 1940, the Tigers posted 5 undefeated seasons, losing 1 game and tying another. Brown had established a level of excellence that he expected from his players, and excellence they did produce. In 9 seasons as Massillon's coach, Paul Brown churned out 4 undefeated national championship teams and claimed Ohio State's title 6 times, culminating in an 88-2 record. So, 1940 comes and passes. Paul Brown leaves to go to OSU as a head coach. And so we have an opening up, and Paul recommends one of his coaches, Bud Houghton, who was coaching at one of the middle schools at the time in Paul's system. So to say Houghton had big shoes to fill would be an understatement. He graduated from 1928 from Washington High School and inherited a 33-game winning streak that began in 1937. He was the head coach of Longfellow Junior High for 6 years. He was well accustomed to the system established by Paul Brown, playing an integral part in Brown's homegrown system. He was familiar with the upcoming players who were a key factor in the Tigers' continued success. Despite having lost 9 of the starting 11 from the dominant 1940 team, he kept the football machine running, posting a 9-0-1 record, extending the winning streak started by Paul Brown. After winning 38 games straight in 4 years, Massillon tied Mansfield 6-6 in Week 6 of the 1941 season. Neither team would go on to lose a game for the rest of the season, and both laid claim to the Ohio State Championship title, the 7th consecutive for Massillon. In the season finale against Canton-McKinley, the Tigers beat the Bulldogs 30-0 in front of a record crowd of 25,000 at Fawcett Stadium in Canton. Following the 1941 season, Houghton enlisted in the Navy and spent the duration of the war as a coach, physical education teacher, and athletic director at various training stations around the country. Upon conclusion of the war, Houghton returned to coach the Tigers for 2 more seasons in 1946 and 47. So in his 3 seasons, Bud posted a record of 21, 6, and 3. And much like Paul Brown recommended Houghton, when he went on to be enlisted, recommended Elwood Cammer to take the head coaching position. So one of the best running backs to come out of Washington High School, Elwood Cam, as they called him, Cammer, carried the football 44 times against Erie Academy, Pennsylvania in 1925, alongside quarterback Paul Brown. By 1935, Cammer was back in Massillon serving as head coach of Lauren Andrews Junior High School. When Bud took charge of the 1941 Tigers, he brought with him Cammer and several others who were already experienced in Paul Brown's system. By the time he was called into service in the Navy, he had chosen Cammer to succeed him in hopes of perpetuating the Massillon football legacy. During his first season, Cammer led the Tigers to a 9-0 start, but fell to Canton-McKinley in the season finale. With the team plagued by injury and illness, this 35-0 feat was the first suffered by the Tigers in the 5 years of Paul Brown Tiger Stadium's existence. But Cam wasn't done yet. The 1943 team rallied from this defeat to claim 10 victories and 0 losses, earning the Ohio State Championship title. 1943 was not only a championship year for Cam, but this year also saw him assume the role of Massillon's Director of Recreation, a title he would hold until 1970. By 1944, the war had directly impacted Massillon. Enlistment left its mark on the number of players available, the oldest of whom was 17. The heaviest starter only weighed 175 pounds. Despite the odds, Cammer and his Tigers posted a respectable 7-3 record. Following the 1944 season, Cammer resigned from head coaching duties while maintaining his role as a physical education teacher. He returned in 1949 as a halfbacks coach under Chuck Mather. In his 3 seasons as head coach of the Tigers, Elwood finished with a 26-4 record. Chuck Mather, the mechanical coach. He came to Massillon prior to the 1948 season. A firm believer in not taking any chances, Mather was the first coach in Massillon history to not cut any player who came out for the team, providing him a variety of players and an extremely knowledgeable and skilled roster. Mather also relied on detailed scouting reports from his assistants to build out his game plan. These reports focused not just on the opposing team as a whole, but on each individual player and his tendencies. These details made Mather's game plan all that much more effective. And of course, continuing in Massillon's innovative spirit, Mather used the state-of-the-art international business machine punch cards, to a precursor to the floppy disk, to record more team data than could be gathered manually. Mather would also use a closed-circuit camera installed on the roof of Paul Brown Tiger Stadium, which sent footage down to a television on the Tiger sideline. This view of the field would aid in making game time adjustments and making Mather and his assistants, assisting them, helping them think on their feet and take advantage of their opponent's weaknesses. Looking to increase community support, Mather started the Touchdown Club, a membership-based organization that meets weekly. This year they are celebrating their 75th anniversary. This club was originally comprised of local businessmen who were treated to a presentation by the coach, which covered the previous week's game and scouting reports for upcoming opponents. These meetings also featured presentations by team captains and provided into players' insight into the season. In 6 seasons, Mather's teams posted an outstanding 57-3 record. The second youngest coach to lead the Tigers at the age of 26, Tom Harp, brought 3 years of coaching experience to Massillon. Thanks to the impeccable system installed by Chuck Mather, Harp was able to continue the winning tradition for at least 1 more season. When Mather left for the University of Kansas, there were over 100 applicants for Massillon's head coaching position. Harp impressed the selection committee with his commitment to film review as a form of game preparation, and as well as his dedication to organizing his offensive line much in the same manner that Mather did. And of course, adhering to Mather's system proved extremely beneficial to Harp and his 1954 team. Going into the season with a 23-game winning streak, The Tigers were eager to continue the success of Mather's regime, increasing the streak to 25 with 2 blowout wins over Struthers and Canton Lincoln. But when Alliance came to town for the season's 3rd week, the Tigers suffered their first loss in 3 seasons. They bounced back afterwards to win the last 5 games of the season, finishing with a 9-1 record. McKinley was the frontrunner in the AP poll up until the 10th week of the season when they lost 26-6 against Harp and his Tigers, giving Massillon the final push they needed to be ranked number 1 in the poll and claim the Ohio State championship title. The following 1955 season did not quite yield similar results for Harp. A tie against Mansfield and a loss to McKinley in what was considered to be the championship game doomed the Tigers to an 8-1-1 record, and they finished 2nd in the AP poll race. Tom Harp would finish his 2-year career at Massillon with a 17-2-1 record. All right. So, by 1957, the head coaching position was vacant once again in Massillon. But it would not remain open for long, as a 35-year-old Leo Strain was recommended to the school board by both Paul Brown and legendary Ohio State University coach Woody Hayes. Strain graduated from Ashland in 1950, where he majored in art, a degree that he would put to great use during his time with the Tigers. 3 years had passed since Massillon sat atop the ranking polls, and with such high praise, Strain was expected to bring the Tigers back to their winning ways. It would take a full season for Strang to get his bearings, but by 1959, he had his Tiger machine rolling. For the next 3 seasons, Massillon finished no lower than 2nd in the rankings and earned 2 more national titles. The 1961 season, which saw the Tigers finish 2nd to Niles in the AP ranking, was coincidentally the last year in which Massillon claimed the national championship title. So figure out how that one works. With an eye for design, Strang was constantly working to bring a well-dressed team to the field. The season in which Strang won his first state title with the Tigers was also the first in which he provided his players white cleats because he believed it'd make them look faster under the lights. But of course, uniform alterations didn't just stop at the shoes. He was very influential. For getting vinyl stickers added to helmets. He's considered the first coach to add vinyl to helmets. He said in his biography that he should have patented it, so he could have gotten a nickel from every helmet that's been vinyled, but you live and you learn. And of course, blazers and everything like that along those lines. He really liked his players to feel confident and dressed, because he knows when you look your best, you feel your best. Strang completed his dazzling 6 seasons in Massillon with a 54-8-1 record. A coach full of passion, Earl Bruce came to Massillon after a 9-0-1 season with Sandusky High that earned him a Coach of the Year award in 1963. In 1963, coincidentally, after winning that award, Bruce would take the Massillon coaching position and take the Tigers hot off their 21st state championship to win their next 2 22nd and 23rd state championships. So week 2 of the 1964 season saw Bruce and his Tigers face Niles, which to this point was on a 48-game winning streak. Playing at the Akron Rubber Bowl in front of over 30,000 fans, the Tigers took home a 14-8 victory and ended Niles' streak. This season also saw both Massillon and McKinley go into the annual rivalry game with 9-0 records, setting up for a battle for the state title. Down by 14 at the half, the Tigers rallied behind backup quarterback Dave Shuyog to come back and score 3 unanswered touchdowns in the final 11 minutes. This led to a final score of 20-14 and yet another state title for the team. Looking to claim this 1965 state title, Bruce and his Tigers again played 9 opponents from the previous season. For each of these teams, playing Massillon became the game to anticipate during the season. Yet, the Tigers defeated all of their opponents to enter the annual Massillon-McKinley game with a 9-0 record once again. And of course, once again, the Tigers found themselves down by 14 at the half, before coming back to topple the Bulldogs 18-14 and claim the state championship for the 23rd time. Bruce would finish his very short 2 seasons with the Tigers with an undefeated record, posting 20-0 in those 2 seasons and 2 state championships. And now Bob Cummings. He took charge of the Tigers in the winter of 1969, following a 7-year career as the head coach of Struthers High School in Eastern Ohio. An unassuming man, he had all the qualities Massillon was looking for in a Tigers coach, from his use of a balanced offense to an unwillingness to accept defeat. The school board believed it had found the right man to place the Tigers back on top after 3 mediocre seasons. Cummings began to lay the groundwork for a winning team during the 1969 season. Even with inexperienced quarterbacks, Cummings was able to develop his players into a well-disciplined squad, finishing the season with a 7-2-1 record, a marginal improvement from 1968. But that was just the start. In 1970, the Tigers rallied around their coach to post a 10-0 season, the first since Earl Bruce's 1965 team. The season was the last time Massillon claimed the state title during the AP poll era, as the 1971 saw the introduction of a computer ranking system that would become the basis for determining a state champion through a playoff bracket. In 1971, the Tigers would finish with an 8-2 record and place 8th statewide, but in 1972, it was a comeback season, as the Tigers went 10-0 and earned the chance to play in the first postseason playoff bracket before falling to Cincinnati Princeton in the semifinals. The 1973 season did not reach the heights of the previous one. Despite going into the annual McKinley game 8-0-1, the Bulldogs emerged with a vengeance and secured the win, ending the Tigers' 21-game regular season winning streak. Cummings completed his Massillon career after the 1973 season, finishing with an overall win record of .877, the third best of any coach to stay with the team for at least 5 years by that point, only behind Paul Brown and Chuck Mather. Cummings would go on to coach at his alma mater, the University of Iowa, before returning to Stark County, Ohio, to lead the Glen Oak Golden Eagles, who now has their stadium named after Mr. Bob Cummings. He finished his 5 years with the Tigers with a 43-6-2 record. And now for today's coach. So, Nate Moore started his head coaching career in 2010 with Minster near Cincinnati. In his 2 seasons with the Wildcats, Moore took a team that had been 0-10 the season before his arrival to 2 back-to-back playoff appearances and an 18-7 record. After Minster, Nate landed at LaSalle, a parochial school just outside of Cincinnati. And for another 2 seasons, Moore took a program from a 3-7 record in 2013 to a 14-1 in 2014, during which they earned this program's first state championship title. By the time that Nate Moore arrived in Massillon in 2015, he had racked up numerous Coach of the Year awards and 1 Division II state championship. And much like the other coaches we've discussed, it took a full season for Moore's system to develop. Facing a schedule packed with teams that qualified for the playoffs the season prior left the Tigers with their only losing record under Moore's leadership. In 2016, the Tigers bounced back to an 8-3 record, qualifying for the OHSAA Division II playoffs before falling to Dublin in the first round. This season would begin a trend of winning seasons and playoff qualifications for the Tigers under Moore's guidance. And this trend culminated in 2023 when the Tigers began their season with a matchup against what was at the time the winningest football program in America, the Valdosta Wildcats of Georgia. Moore's team was victorious, posting a score of 28-17. And then the Tigers would go on to go undefeated in the regular season and push through the playoffs to the state championship finals. The team heavily relied on defense to hold their opponents to a total of 116 points for the entire season, the lowest since John Moranto's 1986 Tiger team. The finals pitted the Tigers against Archbishop Hoban of Akron, and after a long defensive battle, the Massillon came out on top 7-2, claiming the Division II state championship crown for the first time in 53 years. Moore currently stands as Massillon's winningest coach, having surpassed Paul Brown's 80-win record in 2022. And as of Saturday, he is the only coach to have the opportunity to beat McKinley 10 times and to then go on to beat McKinley 10 times in a row. So Nate headed into this season with a record of 110-25. Currently, as he stands, it's 117 to 28. All right. So thank you all for coming out. That was kind of all I got for you. If you're interested in learning more, feel free to check out the Paul Brown and Gallery, as well as the Paul Brown and Massillon Tigers timeline, as well as the rotating exhibits in the Paul Brown and Gallery. The next exhibition coming up will be Play Like a Girl, Flag Football in the City of Champions, which will be opening February 2026. That'll be looking at Massillon's first flag football team, girls flag football team, and their inaugural season. If you have any specific interests, schedule an appointment with me. I've got business cards at the front desk. Would love to take you guys into the Paul Brown Research Library, where we have a myriad of articles and yearbooks, anything you could possibly want to see. So yeah, any questions? Do I have time? You have time for questions? How can I help you? Yes.
A couple things. On how the champions were determined, you skipped over 71. I assume that was still on AP?
So yes, it was kind of a weird thing where they were relying on the AP poll, but they were also instituting the computer ranking system. So they did go with the AP poll to declare the state champion, but they also used the numbers that they would then go to use in like the 72 and onwards. I think it's the Harbin system is what it's called, to figure out those state champions.
The other thing is I found it interesting that when you talked about computer punch cards, you explained what they were. I think the majority of people in this room probably know what they were.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. Yes, Rick.
Can you pop up Coach Fugate?
There we go.
If they ever do a movie about him, actor Nicolas Cage could play it.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't address this, but the 1940s year has always been a curiosity to me.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any insight as to how Massillon was able to schedule a preseason game against Kent State?
So I'm not 100% sure how they were able to kind of get that. I think it was kind of Paul Brown, his braggadocious of, we have the best football team, and he, till the day he died, said that's the best football team he ever coached. So I think it was just having that standing of, we are the best, we've won 6 state championships, what can you guys do? So yeah, they would end up playing that Kent State game, and they did have a game against Akron scheduled, but they beat the Kent State team so hard in the first half that Akron decided to call the game and not play. That would have so it would have been post the 40 season, so I think it was like spring of 1941.
What was their record?
Oh, that I am not 100% sure off the top of my head. Yes, Alex.
In conducting your research, which has obviously been a lot going into this presentation, and especially for such a short amount of time after making yourself to the Tigers, you did an amazing job. What was the most interesting fact? What did you land on something and you just thought that was really unusual, or is there a highlight reel for you in terms of what you?
All right. Let me see in here. I have it in my notes. A fun thing about Bob Cummings. Where's he at? So prior to coming to Massillon, Bob Cummings was coaching at Struthers, as I said, and he managed to get a 50, 16, and 4 record. And this is in spite of the fact of never having a squad larger than 38 players. To put it into perspective, the 1968 Massillon squad had 55. So posting a phenomenal record like that with very few pieces and parts and players to be able to get those wins, I think is a very big testament to Bob Cummings' coaching.
Fun fact, Alex Kammer took driver's training.
I've heard.
While he was in high school.
Yeah.
He was my teacher. Thank you, Bob. I've driven thousands of miles based on everything you talked about. And also, being a fashion-oriented person, wanted to talk about the decals on the helmets.
Yeah.
Now, Was that something he took from the pros?
No, that was him. He started here. Yep, they took it from him. Yes, it's very impressive. Yeah, he went to the equipment manager and said, "Can we make this happen?" And they played with some different adhesives and stuff, and they made it happen. And yeah, in his biography, he really beats himself up for not copywriting or getting a patent on that that method.
But did he also start the
Stars?
the stars?
Yes.
He did that.
Yes, he did. Yes. Yes.
Rudy just shared with me that he designed the Tiger for Bob Cummings's years.
Really?
He said he has the original drawing.
Oh, Rudy, if you need someplace to store that, I have a filing cabinet that would go love that.
One of my favorite pictures was the Akron Beacon Journal had a close-up of Steve Studer helmet all muddy in the McKinley game. And that's the first time I ever saw that logo published. Yeah, great picture.
That's David. I think I can picture the image you're talking about. It's ringing a bell. Yeah.
You can buy that, by the way. Jeannie Studer, her shop up there, she has little miniatures.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't know where they came from. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming out.